He eased her back onto the grass, careful not to jostle her injured leg. The river glimmered beside them, its quiet flow the only sound in the empty stretch of land. She tried to speak, but the pain tightened her throat. He offered her a canteen, waiting as she sipped slowly. Her eyes, wide with fear, searched his face as if trying to decide whether he was danger or salvation. "My cabin isn't far," he said gently. "I can get you there, you'll be safe." She hesitated, then nodded, trusting him because she had no one else to trust. He slipped an arm beneath her shoulders and another under her knees, lifting her with surprising gentleness for a man who spent his life breaking the earth with his hands. She winced, but he murmured reassurances, steady as a mountain. His horse snorted nearby, restless but obedient. He settled her on the saddle first, keeping her balanced with one strong hand. Her fingers clutched his coat as he climbed up behind her, his chest supporting her trembling frame. "Hold on," he whispered. "I won't let you fall." They rode across the fading light, the land stretching endlessly around them. Her breaths were sharp at first, each jolt sending pain up her leg, but gradually she leaned into him, letting the rhythm of the horse steady her. He kept one arm wrapped around her waist, guiding the reins with the other. Dust rose behind them, catching the last warmth of the sun. "What were you doing out here alone?" he asked softly. She hesitated before answering. "Running from something, or someone, I'm not sure anymore." The cabin came into view at the top of a small ridge, weathered but strong, a lonely structure that had sheltered him through storms, droughts, and long years of silence. He helped her down carefully, supporting most of her weight. When she tried to step, her ankle buckled and she gripped his arm in panic. "Easy," he murmured. "I've got you." He carried her inside, pushing the door open with his shoulder. The room was simple, stone hearth, wooden table, a single bed pushed against the far wall. He laid her gently on the bed, then pulled off his gloves and set them aside. Her breathing was quick, her face pale from the ride. He crouched beside her, examining the swollen ankle. "This isn't a small sprain," he said quietly. "You can't walk on it for days." She swallowed hard. I don't want to be a burden." His expression softened, the roughness of ranch life giving way to something kinder. "You're hurt. That's all that matters right now. Let me take care of this." He heated water over the hearth, gathering clean cloths and herbs from a small wooden chest, remnants of lessons taught long ago by a passing trader who knew a thing or two about frontier injuries. When he pressed the warm cloth to her ankle, she gasped and clenched the blanket. "I know," he murmured. "It hurts, but this will help." He worked with slow, steady hands, wrapping the injury securely. She watched him through heavy breaths, struck by how gentle a man of such strength could be. When he finished, he pulled a chair beside the bed and sat close enough to watch her carefully without crowding her. "You'll be staying here until you can stand without shaking," he said. "I don't mind." She looked away, tears forming from exhaustion more than fear. "You don't even know my name," she whispered. He nodded. "Then tell me when you're ready." She exhaled shakily. "My name is Clara." He repeated it softly, as if committing it to the wood and stone around them. "I'm Daniel." Night settled outside, the wind brushing against the cabin walls like distant whispers. Daniel stoked the fire higher, warming the room until the cold couldn't reach her. Clara shifted slowly, her ankle throbbing beneath the bandage, but the warmth soothed her. "Why did you stop for me?" she asked quietly. Daniel paused, hand still resting on the poker. "Because leaving you there wasn't an option, not out here." She studied the set of his shoulders, strong, steady, shaped by hardship, but not hardened by it. He brought her a bowl of stew and helped her sit upright, supporting her back with one arm. She ate slowly, each movement careful. Halfway through the meal, her hands began to tremble from fatigue. Without a word, Daniel steadied the bowl, letting her lean against his shoulder until she finished. "Thank you," she whispered, voice cracking. "I haven't had someone look out for me in A long time. Daniel looked at her, the flicker of firelight softening the usually stern lines of his face. Everyone deserves someone in their corner. When she began to tire, he adjusted the blankets and moved the chair back a little, giving her room to breathe. She closed her eyes briefly, but sleep didn't come easily. Daniel noticed the tension in her jaw, the way she gripped the blanket like it might slip away. "You keep listening for something," he said gently. "Someone after you." Clara stiffened. Silence stretched between them like a drawn bowstring. Finally, she nodded. "Yes, and if they find me, it won't end well." Daniel straightened slowly, the air shifting with his unspoken promise. He moved to the door, checking the bolt, then propped his rifle beside it. She watched him, surprised. "You don't even know what you're protecting me from." Daniel looked over his shoulder, expression firm but calm. "Doesn't matter. You're under my roof now." Clara's breath caught, not from fear but relief. No one had defended her without demanding something in return. Daniel simply stoked the fire again, the glow casting warm light across the room, and pulled a blanket around his shoulders as he settled into the chair for the night. Sleep came slowly for Clara, but eventually her breathing evened out. Daniel stayed awake longer, the years of ranch life teaching him to listen to the land. Coyotes called in the distance. The river murmured beyond the ridge. Nothing approached the cabin. Still, he kept his hand near the rifle, his eyes drifting toward Clara every so often to ensure she hadn't slipped into fever. She slept peacefully, trust slowly replacing fear. He didn't know her story yet, but he knew one thing: she needed safety, and he could give her that. The first light of morning slipped through the window, painting the floor in soft gold. Clara stirred, wincing when she tried to shift her leg. Daniel was already awake, boiling water for coffee. "Morning," he said quietly. She offered a tired smile. "I didn't think I'd sleep at all." Daniel handed her a cup of warm tea instead. "You were exhausted. Pain does that." She sipped carefully, the warmth easing the tightness in her chest. "You stayed up," she said. "You didn't have to." He shrugged lightly. "Didn't feel right leaving you." As the day brightened, Daniel checked her ankle again. The swelling had gone down slightly, but it was still tender. She clenched her teeth as he pressed gently around the injury. "Sorry," he murmured. "Had to make sure the bone's not broken." She released a breath she'd been holding. "So?" Daniel wrapped the bandage again with practiced care. "You'll heal. Just need rest." Clara looked around the cabin, a mixture of gratitude and worry passing across her face. "I don't want to trouble you." Daniel met her eyes. "You're not trouble." The fire crackled softly as Daniel prepared breakfast. Clara inhaled the comforting smell of eggs and bread, her stomach reminding her she hadn't eaten properly in days. When he brought the plate over, she studied him openly. The quiet patience in his movements, the strength in his hands, the steadiness that seemed to anchor the whole room. "You're kind," she said softly. Daniel paused, surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "Just doing what anyone should." Clara shook her head. Not everyone would have stopped. Throughout the morning, Daniel told her about the land, the ranch he once owned, and the quiet life he had carved out far from town. Clara listened, fascinated by the calm strength in his stories. Storms weathered, cattle driven across harsh plains, years spent alone with nothing but the vast sky above him. In return, she revealed small pieces of her own past, careful and measured. A journey gone wrong, a man she trusted turning dangerous, a desperate escape into the wild. Daniel didn't pry. He simply listened, offering understanding instead of judgment. Later, while he stepped outside to chop wood, Clara watched through the window. He moved with practiced rhythm, each swing precise. Despite his rugged strength, there was something gentle in the way he carried himself, a quiet resilience, a steadiness that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't in years. When he returned, brushing dust from his shirt, she smiled faintly. "You make this place feel safe." Daniel paused, surprised. paused. It's just a cabin. Clara held his gaze. It's more than that. It's the first place I haven't been afraid. Afternoon sunlight washed through the windows, warming the room. Daniel adjusted her bandage again, making sure it wasn't too tight. She watched him closely, noting how he concentrated with care, his touch firm but gentle. "You have good hands," she said quietly. Daniel chuckled softly. "Hands don't mean much. It's what you do with them that counts." Clara looked down at her ankle, then back at him. "You saved me." Daniel shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just helped you stand long enough to keep going." But she knew he was giving himself too little credit. As evening approached, Clara spoke again, her voice timid but steady. "When I'm strong enough, I'll leave. I don't want to bring danger to your doorstep." Daniel paused in the middle of stacking firewood. "You can stay as long as you need. Whoever you're running from, they'll find this land less welcoming than they think." There was no boast in his tone, just certainty. Clara felt her breath tighten with unexpected emotion. No one had ever spoken that way for her, not out of obligation, but genuine care. "Thank you," she whispered. Night returned quietly, the sky stretching black and infinite above the plains. Daniel lit a lantern, its warm glow filling the cabin. Clara's ankle throbbed less now, though it still sent jolts of pain if she moved too quickly. Daniel pulled the chair close again, not too near, but close enough that she wouldn't feel alone. For the first time in days, Clara let her guard down fully. "You don't even know me," she murmured. "Still helping me like this." Daniel rested his hands together, thoughtful. Sometimes strangers carry heavier stories than friends ever know. Clara settled back, her breathing slow and even. Daniel watched the firelight flicker across her face, softening the traces of fear she still carried. He didn't know how long she would stay or what trouble might come looking for her, but he knew one thing with quiet certainty. He wasn't going to let her face it alone. The Wild West was a hard place, unforgiving to the weak and merciless to the wounded. But for now, in this small cabin atop a lonely ridge, a wounded stranger had found safety. And Daniel, long accustomed to silence, found purpose again. He carried her across the darkening stretch of land, her weight pressing lightly against him as she fought to stay conscious. When he pushed the cabin door open with his shoulder, the warmth of the room immediately wrapped around them. Her dress, torn from the fall and soaked from the riverbank, clung to her uncomfortably. She shivered, teeth chattering softly. Daniel set her gently onto the bed, his brows drawn with worry. "You're freezing," he murmured. He pulled a blanket over her shoulders, then knelt to check her ankle again. "You're safe now," he whispered, steady and sincere. The fire crackled to life under Daniel's hands, flames stretching upward, chasing shadows from the corners of the cabin. Clara watched him as he worked, quick, efficient, focused. When he turned back to her, concern tightened his expression. "Your dress is too wet," he said quietly. "You'll get sick if you stay in it." Daniel stepped to his storage chest and brought out a clean, oversized dry shirt, something soft, old but warm. "I'll turn my back," he said gently. "Take your time." She felt safe enough to trust him completely. As Daniel faced the opposite wall, Clara changed, struggling through the pain in her ankle. The dry shirt fell past her knees, warm and smelling faintly of wood smoke and clean cotton. When she whispered that she was finished, he turned back, relief in his eyes when he saw color returning to her face. He carefully gathered her wet dress, hanging it near the fire to dry. "Better?" he asked softly. Clara nodded, feeling for the first time in days like she could finally breathe without fear pushing at her ribs. Daniel prepared a warm poultice made from crushed herbs and hot water, a skill passed down from an old ranch hand who had seen more injuries than any doctor in town. He pressed it gently against her ankle, and Clara gasped from the sudden heat. Daniel steadied her, murmuring, "Easy, it'll help the swelling." She tightened her grip on the blanket but forced herself to relax. The warmth seeped slowly into her skin, easing the sharpest edges of the pain. Daniel's fingers, rough from years of ranch work, moved with surprising gentleness. Outside, the wind howled across the plains, rattling the windows and sweeping dust against the door. Inside, the firelight painted soft gold across the walls, turning the small wooden room into a warm sanctuary. Clara's eyelids fluttered, her exhaustion heavy. Daniel brought her a tin cup of warm tea, kneeling beside the bed again. "This will help you rest," he said. She accepted it with trembling hands. "Why are you being so kind?" she whispered. Daniel hesitated before answering. "Because you needed help, and out here, people don't always get it when they need it most." Clara drank slowly, letting the warmth settle deep into her chest. When she finished, Daniel took the cup and set it aside. She watched him as he moved through the cabin, quiet, composed, strong in a way that didn't intimidate, but steadied. "You're different," she murmured. He paused, glancing back at her with a faint smile. "I think that's the nicest thing someone said to me in a long time." The room fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the crackle of burning logs. In the safety of that small room, she felt the fear inside her loosen its grip. Daniel pulled his chair closer, but left enough space so she wouldn't feel overwhelmed. "Try to rest," he said, adjusting the blanket around her shoulders. Clara lay back, her ankle resting on a folded cloth for elevation. "You're staying up?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded. "Just in case you need something or the pain gets worse." She studied his face, the calm determination, the way his eyes softened when he looked at her. "You don't even know who I am," she whispered. Daniel held her gaze. "I don't need to. You needed help." She drifted in and out of sleep, waking sometimes to find Daniel checking the fire or adjusting the poultice or simply watching over her with quiet concern. Each time she felt a little less alone. Hours passed, and when dawn finally broke, the world outside the cabin turned pale blue with soft morning light. Daniel leaned forward, checking her ankle again. "Swelling's going down," he murmured. Clara rubbed her eyes. "I didn't think I'd see morning without pain tearing through me." Daniel smiled faintly. "You're tougher than you think." As the morning warmed, Daniel helped her sit up. The oversized shirt draped around her comfortably, making her look small and fragile in a way that struck his heart unexpectedly. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "Starving," she admitted with a weak laugh. He cooked quickly. Eggs, bread warmed over the fire, a bit of dried meat. Clara ate slowly but with growing appetite. "I haven't had a proper meal in days," she said. "You're safe here," Daniel replied, his voice steady. "No one's going to hurt you under this roof." She believed him. Clara watched him as he cleaned dishes, noticing how naturally he moved through the small room. There was a quiet loneliness in him, a man who lived with the land but without company. "You live alone," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "Been that way for years." Clara tilted her head. "By choice." Daniel paused, then shrugged. "Maybe at first, then it just became life." She looked at him, her expression gentle. "Must get lonely." Daniel smiled faintly. "It did, until yesterday." The words warmed her more than the fire. Later that afternoon, he helped her outside for a moment to get fresh air. He supported her weight carefully, one arm around her waist as she hopped on her good foot. The open plains stretched endlessly, sunlight bathing the land in gold. Clara breathed in deeply, letting the peace of the frontier settle into her chest. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Daniel glanced down at her. "It is, but dangerous too. Folks get lost out here, or found by the wrong people." Clara tensed slightly. He noticed. "Who are you running from?" he asked gently. Clara swallowed hard. "A man who doesn't accept no for an answer," she said quietly. "I left." And he followed. Daniel's jaw tightened. He guided her back inside, closing the door behind them as if sealing the outside world out. "Well," he said calmly, If he comes here, he won't touch you. Clara looked up, surprised by the certainty in his voice. Why? Daniel stepped closer, his eyes steady. Because you're under my care now. Because helping you isn't a burden. And because nobody deserves to be hunted. Throughout the day, Daniel rewrapped her ankle, bringing comfort she didn't expect to feel again. Clara found herself opening up in small ways. Stories of her past, her fears, her hopes. To start fresh somewhere far from danger. Daniel listened without interrupting, something rare in her life. You still have a future. This injury won't stop you, quietly. And whatever trouble is following you, we'll face it when it comes. Clara's breath caught. He wasn't just offering shelter, he was offering strength she didn't know she needed. Night settled again, soft and peaceful. Clara lay in bed, watching Daniel stoke the fire. "Why are you doing all this for me?" she asked gently. Daniel set the poker aside. "Because you remind me what it feels like to do something that matters," he said. She looked at him with a softness she hadn't felt in years. "You saved me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. "Maybe, but maybe you saved me too." Clara's smile was small, tender and real, and in that quiet moment, something unspoken settled between them. Trust, safety, and a beginning neither expected.